20 years ago, he was high-flying, pulling in tens of millions of dollars as the notorious Wolf of Wall Street, which you'll correct me on in a moment. Then came the crash, succumbing to drug addiction and ultimately ending up in prison. Fast track to today, and Jordan Belfort is a changed man, making a living as an author, life coach and motivational speaker. And he's here in Australia sharing the lessons he's learnt in a life of corporate greed and excess. So how can those lessons help you as an investor and even as a human being? Welcome to Jordan Belfort.
Thanks. How are you?
Great, mate. Great to see you. Last time we spoke, you were in LA and I was here.
Right.
That's fantastic having you in the studio.
Yeah.
How are you enjoying Australia?
It's fabulous. Having a great time. Been here for about 2.5 weeks. Done a lot of speaking to corporations and publicly, some seminars and some charity work at Oasis, which has been really rewarding. And
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. And now I'm going to Melbourne and actually Perth tomorrow, and then Melbourne next week, and making the rounds.
Fantastic, mate. Now, look, one thing you want to clarify, you're not the Wolf of Wall Street, you're the author.
Right.
Yeah, but people have presumed that you, therefore, were, by definition, the Wolf of Wall Street. So where did the name come from?
Well, the name, actually, it's a funny story. It's from a character in a sitcom, The Gilligan's Island. Thurston Howell the third was the Wolf of Wall Street. And one of the kids had watched it, and he, just said something in the boardroom, and it stuck. I had all sorts of nicknames: Gordon, Gecko, Scary. Greed is good. Greed is not good, I assure you. But
I guess for a while you might have believed that, because a lot of young investors in those days did.
Well, that's a valid point. I think, when I give seminars, one of the things I talk about, really, there's 4 things that I did really, really well that allowed me to make so much money at such a young age, and 2 things that I did in a really, really negative way that caused me to crash and burn. And those 4 things don't just apply to business. They apply to any aspect of your life, in love, relationships, community, spirituality. They're really 4 things that allow you to succeed at the highest level. And one of those is empowering belief systems. The problem is one of the beliefs I had in my life was based on Gordon Gecko, because I watched him in the movie theater, and he was sexy and on stage and looking great with his giant house and his art collection. And he said greed is good. Greed cuts through. Greed clarifies. Not true. Ambition is good. Ambition clarifies. When you are involved with greed as your primary motivator, the first thing that goes flying out the window is your ethics. And it comes about making as much as you can, as fast as you can. And that's really what happened to me and a whole generation of many, many brokers.
Jordan, would you love to have a word to Oliver Stone and Michael Douglas one of these days? Because in a sense, you were a young guy, and also, what's his name, Bud Fox, what was his real name?
Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen. Because in a sense, it was a powerful film, and they would have affected a lot of young people working on Wall Street, and you were in that sort of situation, weren't you?
I actually know Oliver Stone. I've met him before.
Have you ever talked about the impact that movie had on you?
I didn't at the time.
You're gracious.
I know, I didn't. And but interestingly enough, at the time, though, when I met him, I wasn't quite as clear on what really was the cause of, or the multiple causes of my downfall. And I really hadn't zeroed in on one of them being belief systems, because empowering beliefs can provide you with a lifetime of joy and fulfillment, and negative beliefs can cause you to have pain and suffering and quiet desperation. And the problem is that we don't know who inserts our beliefs. There's no spyware in our brain, and you see something and bang, it makes sense to you, and next thing you know, you take it as gospel. And I think that the message that got out in Wall Street, the problem is that they didn't play the movie long enough. It ended where you were unclear what happened to Gordon Gecko. Obviously, he got in trouble. Bud Fox might or might not be going to jail, but the truth is that the behavior that was exemplified by Gecko in the movie is a disaster. If that's your creed you're living by, you're going to have a lifetime of, you're going to suffer from a disease called more. No matter how much you have, you're going to want more.
Yeah. Let's zoom in to the time when you were making money and making a big reputation on Wall Street. How were you doing? How did you create this business that did really well for a while?
Very simple. 95% of what I was doing was legitimate. 5% was illegitimate. It started off all legitimate, and I lost my way very slowly, which is what usually happens. It doesn't happen all at once. But there were 2 things that I hit on that allowed me to build the firm to this, extraordinary level. And the first was the ability to motivate, train any kid, regardless of age, race, creed, color, educational background, socioeconomic status. Many of the kids were as smart as a box of rocks. I mean, they were not educated guys. And I had a system for taking them. If they had this much desire, I could amplify it. And that was the first thing I did. So they'd come in, and I would break down their negative beliefs, installed empowering beliefs, taught them how to manage their state, developed sales strategies that show them how to sell on the phone, and I raised their standards so they would, instead of thinking they were only worth to make 70 to 100,000 a year, I said, no, you can make $500,000, $1 million a year. So those were the things I did on that level. On the other level, I came up with a niche in the market, which was selling $6 stocks to the wealthiest 1% of Americans. No one had done that before. People had sold penny stocks to people with little or no net worth, and they were the bigger companies selling big stocks to the wealthy people. And I knew wealthy people were buying $6 stocks, but no one had ever tried to sell it to them in an organized fashion. That's what I did, and I combined this ability to train and motivate. Each day I give a motivational meeting in the morning, 1 hour, and then I gave 2 hours in the evening, and it was day after day for years and years and years. And that was really what allowed the firm to grow, along with this method of selling $6 stocks. Now, the problem was nothing wrong with that, perfectly legal. We were taking companies public, doing investment banking, but I engaged in something called free riding, which meant I was buying back large blocks of the new issues right when they open, and that's illegal. And I did that, and I rationalized it, saying everyone else is doing it, it's not so terrible, so on and so forth. And I give ethics speeches now to colleges. I do it pro bono. One of the things I tell the kids is like, listen, you do it once, and you think, well, I'll do it once and I'll be a pillar. That's not the way it works in Wall Street or any street. Once you sacrifice your ethics, okay, it's like tiny imperceptible steps. If this is your line of morality and you cross over your line once and then you step back over, you're doing it right, but your line of morality is moved over a bit. Next time you step over, you step a bit further, then a bit further, then further still. And before you know it, through tiny imperceptible steps, you're doing things you never thought you'd do, associating with people you never thought you'd associate with, and it all seems perfectly okay.